Please like and subscribe to Landry.Audio. We are available on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram. Today, the Chief Peter Graham, a professional fighter with 124 fights across kickboxing, full contact karate, boxing, and MMA. The Chief speaks to us from his home in Sydney. I had the chance to train with Peter for a few years between 2010 and 2014, where he was starting to dip his toes into MMA at Larry Papadopoulos' Boxing Works gym. Peter has won 6 kickboxing world titles, the Australian Heavyweight Boxing Championship, a WBF boxing title, and a WKBF Thai boxing world title, and was the Australian and New Zealand full contact Kuyokushin champion. He is a veteran of K-1, KSW, and Bellator MMA. He now owns and runs his own gym, IMC Prospect, in Sydney's western suburbs. How are we today, Chief?
I'm good, man. It's a beautiful day where I am. It's nice and sunny, not too hot. I can't stand hot weather, so I'm really happy.
Oh, really? I hate that we're coming into winter. Can't stand the dampness, the rain, any of that stuff. Much rather prefer it to be 30,
my wife's
35.
from Brazil, so when we went to Darwin, she's like, "Oh, let's move to Darwin." I'm like, "You're freaking crazy. Let's move to Tasmania."
Fair enough.
So that's our biggest conflict ever.
That's a pretty good marriage then.
yeah, it's not too bad. She still likes me.
Where does actually, that's the easiest question to ask right out of the gate. Let's talk about the nickname. Where does the Chief come from?
You know what? It was when I was still an amateur. I was training at a place in Randwick called Black Belt Pro, and everyone said, "Oh, hey Pete, you need a nickname." I have a nickname, but that's not really a fight nickname, and everyone's kind of shooting names around like Peter the Great. I'm like, come on, I'm not calling myself Peter the Great. That's ridiculous. And I said, look, I can't name myself. You just sound like a tool, giving yourself your own name. I said, you guys got to come up with it. And then a guy called Matt Spooner said, let's call him the Chief. He's the chief of everything. He seems to run everything anyway. It's just like, and you always win, and you're always kind of waffling on. And then one of the other guys said, yeah, I got one of those big Indian chief
headdresses or whatever, yeah.
Headdresses. I'll bring it to the next fight. I said, okay, you bring that, and I'll call myself the Chief. And if you think, man, no one ever does it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone forgets, or everyone, says it, doesn't follow through, and they followed through and turned up with it. I always like American Indians, and I like their story and their struggle. It's really interesting. I find that stuff really interesting. And I thought, okay, well, you guys did it, and it just stuck, and no one ever. So you get called something, it's not really you or a fit. If they call you psycho and you're mild mannered, it's not really going to stick. So I guess the Chief stuck. And now it's also, people call me the Chief all the time, like as a nickname. So I'm cool. I like it.
It's interesting that you mentioned Matt Spooner, because he was instructing
I got my DNA done.
Yeah.
Oh, so I said I even got my DNA done, hoping that I might have some, Central American Indian. I don't.
Right.
So sad.
Yeah,
and you're right, Matt's. Oh, sorry, you go.
No. I think we're just with the lag in the telephone. I think we're just cutting each other off. But you had said Matt Spooner, because he was instructing there at the same time I was there. So you guys have known each other for a while, huh?
Yeah, Matt Spooner and me have known each other for since I was like 20 or something. We even worked on the doors at nightclubs and stuff together. And, we trained at Black Belt Pro. Man, yeah, we've known each other a really, really long time.
Well, how did you get into what we want to do today is we want to talk about your fight career and some of the lessons that you've learned, and you can share some stories with us. You've been around for a long time, so while a lot of people my age and younger go sort of directly into MMA or start with one of the common bases like Thai boxing, wrestling, or BJJ first, you come from a karate background. So do you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, how you found karate, moved into Kuyokushin, and I guess how that led to a fighting career for yourself?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. you know, when I was growing up, I lived in refuges and I was a street kid. And, you know, like most kids in refuges and street kids, I wasn't really doing much. But I wanted to do something. You know, I had a really, really, really bad time at school because I went to so many different schools. And because of how I lived, every couple of months I moved. And, you know, that was for years as well. You know, no one really giving me any guidance or support or, like people have a mom and dad or brothers and sisters, uncles and aunties, or even grandparents or whatever. I didn't have any of that growing up. It was just kind of bounced around from one place to another, like in government, what they call youth homeless refuges and stuff. And I got to about 17 and I thought, man, I'm absolutely shit at everything. I'm shit at making friends. I'm shit at school. I'm just literally, I was not good at anything. I thought I got to, if I continue like this, I'm going to be nothing. I'm never going to achieve anything in my life. I need to get something. And I thought, well, my education is so bad. I always thought I could, I was, slightly athletic, except at that time I wasn't. I used to smoke cigarettes. Can you believe that? When I was a kid. I mean, they even gave it to us in the refuges. The government refuges, they used to give us cigarettes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right? But anyway, maybe it was so we wouldn't fight each other or stuff like that. I don't know. Keep us calm. Get us ready for jail, probably. They gave us the same type of cigarettes they gave the prisoners in jail too. They gave us white box rollies.
Can I ask how you found yourself in that position? How do you? Because in other interviews you said that you did have parents and stuff. So how you call them refuges? I guess like ward of the state. How did you find yourself in that position as a youth?
Okay, so clearly I have a biological mother and father. And I lived with both for some time. What happened? I mean, I guess it was just the breakdown of the family unit. I mean, to begin with, my mom and dad got divorced when I was young, and then we went from living in the North Shore and having a nice home and I guess a really privileged, nice life to, seemingly having nothing overnight. And I guess, that affected my mother. And she kind of had a mental breakdown and put all the kids in, I went to child services, they drop you off and, went there a couple of times and she, she kind of got better or, got her head together or whatever it was. And we come home again but she had a lot of issues. It wasn't drugs and alcohol, but there was, clearly issues. And she and I used to argue all the time. And I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a criminal or anything like that. It was just I guess she wasn't cut out to raise kids. And, I got dropped off at, child services again. And then finally was about 12, maybe I was 13. She just kicked me out and said, don't ever come back. And, and then, there was some contact. I stayed at some friends' houses. And then the school found out and they said, well, what's going on? I said, oh, well, we're staying with this family, then another family. Then you kind of, wear out your stay a little bit. It's like, well, you've been here for a while. We kind of thought that you were going to work it out with your mom or something. And then I never knew where my dad was. And then, and my mom wouldn't let me know where it was. And, I had an older brother who was kind of in and out of boys' homes and stuff. And, they wouldn't let me know where he was. And my mom wouldn't let me know where any of my aunties or uncles or my grandparents were. So it's all secret. It's a crazy story, man. Anyway, so I didn't have anyone I'd turn to, no one to kind of say, hey, don't worry, you can come and live with us, or not that I was aware of at the time, especially when I was real young. And I just, end up going to, like a government-run refuge. Mm. And then you kind of go from one to another. So you start off in one that's, like crisis. So like if your mom and dad are unable to look after you, really suddenly, they'll put kids into what they call a crisis refuge. And then, say your parents got hurt or something like that, or most of the time it's, your dad went to jail and your mum's an alcoholic who, put herself in a hospital or something. It's tragic for most of the kids. And then they might get it together, so you come back and, you'll go home, and then there's to have like medium-term refuges. And that means, say you've got a single mom and she gets incarcerated. And then you're going to go and stay, and you might only have 2 months. So you can go live at a refuge for 2 months. And they're pretty good. They give you a clean bed and food and, most of the people, most of the time, really nice. And then you go home. And then there's long-term, and they can put you into foster homes. And I guess you could also be adopted. But what happens is you have to have it's almost like a consent form from the parent. They've got to agree to say, I'm going to let the government look after you. And my mom never did that. So I just stayed in for the most of the majority of the time in either crisis or medium-term refuges until I was old enough to stay in one for longer, which is when you're about 18. So I just kept on getting kicked around from one place to another place to another place for all of my teenage years and a little later.
So is that what you mean, sort of moving around between schools regularly as well? Is that because you were getting bumped around with your housing arrangements?
Yeah, so you'd move to another area, so they just put you in another school.
Right. Okay, but there was still support. So you end up 18 as well.
Yeah. They have support. They have what they call I think it's what was it called? It's been a while. Young adult. So what they do, it becomes less care, and they give you a bit of guidance. But most of the time, looking back now, what they're kind of setting you up for is, now when you go to jail, make sure you do this, or
right.
This is the best way to get unemployment benefits, and this is what you do when you when you get caught with illegal. Illegal.
So it really is low expectations on what they expect to come from you beyond that.
Well, certainly for me, they didn't ever feel the weight of expectation on my shoulders from anyone. That's for sure.
Okay. You had mentioned something that was very interesting. You had said that you recognized that you weren't good at anything. So prior to starting martial arts, was the goal just to find a skill that you could do, or how did that lead towards starting karate?
Well, to answer that question, I kind of have to go back in time. When I was 14, I wasn't even living in a refuge. I was living in a massive stormwater drain, so to speak, in a place called Eastwood, just in a nice suburb outside of Sydney. Mm-hmm. And the reason I wasn't living on the streets like most street kids in the city is because I was from the Northern Beaches, and that's a really nice area. You don't really meet kids who end up as street kids and live in refuges, from the Northern Beaches. So I was scared. I was like, man, if I hang around with these guys, they're going to find out that I'm from Northern Beaches and beat me up. And, it was all in my head. But, I was like, I never told anyone. I thought if I tell them that, they're going to say, hey, this kid's not from the, even from the eastern suburbs, was way tougher area than from the Northern Beaches. So I never told anyone that I was from the Northern Beaches. And anyway, so I was living in this massive stormwater drain, and it was nearly my sister's birthday, which is just like July. So it was, not exactly an awesome time. So what I used to do is I used to stash my backpack in there and stuff so no one would go in. It had like a big fence around it. I just jumped the fence, go in there, and I could hide all my stuff in there, which was, comprised of a backpack. But this goes to show how much of a hard ass I was. I bought some spray paint, and I was going to spray paint inside of this massive stormwater drain, some graffiti for my sister. I thought, you know what, because my sister used to catch a train and go past there, and she could have looked in there and saw it. She still lives at home. My mum never kicked her out. And I used to go home and see her and say hi or whatever. Anyway, so I tried to do this piece of graffiti, and it was shit. And I went, that's shit. I said, I can't show that. She's going to, laugh at me. And I was sitting there kind of like, because there was like an open part of the stormwater drain. Have you ever seen those really massive brick ones?
I'm trying to visualize it. I know what you're talking about, but I'm having a hard time visualizing you sleeping in one of those.
Okay, so what I did is just on the outside of it, but within the fence, like there was a whole bunch of shrubs and bushes and small trees.
Yeah.
And so I stashed my stuff in there, and just kind of on the side of it, that's where I'd sleep. Because at the most, there'd only be like a really small trickle of water, because they're stormwater drains. They're basically empty all the time, except if there's a storm.
Right. How did you look after yourself? Like, if you're in the West, then how did you come across getting even a weekly shower or something along those lines?
You'd go to someone, you'd find out where there was a party, and you'd have a shower, and there'd be food, so you eat there, or you'd go to the shops, and you'd kind of steal, or you'd bum some money off someone, or just or you try to see if you could find someone from one of the other schools I went to or something like that. Yeah.
Off you go. Okay.
Well, it wasn't really good. I mean, I went back and forth to different refuges. Like sometimes you turn up, or I just was never, like I said, I wasn't the type of kid. I wasn't mugging people.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was probably too scared to get mugged back. But anyway, so I felt really bad, and I went, you know what, Pete, you fucked at everything. I was about 14 years old. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wait till about 2 o'clock in the morning. There's a shopping center down the road. I thought I'm going to pick up one of the massive big, what are they called? Big pots that I had, how you get the really big ceramic pots. They put kind of small trees in them.
Yeah, pot plants, yeah.
Yeah, but the real big ones. I seen one of them, and it didn't have a tree in it, so I'll pick that up. I'll throw it through this plate glass window that was a sports store, and I thought, at the very least, I'll be able to look cool.
Okay.
I'll run inside. Because I could run fast. So, I thought I'll go in there. I'll take all the clothes off, get a few pairs of sneakers, and I'll look cool. And I'll just have to become a bona fide criminal.
Yeah.
So I snuck over. There's no one around. Picked up this massive ceramic pot, and I threw it at this plate glass window, the sports store, and it just bounced off and broke into hundreds of bits. All the alarms went off, and then the beep beep beep, and I ran out. I ran back to where I was staying. Jumped on the fence. I was like, "This is fucked." I thought, man, I can't even become a criminal.
Okay, all right.
I really was sad. I was sad, man. I was like, come on, I got to, I was like, I was desperate. I was like, man, I'll take anything. I thought, and I didn't really have, it's not like I had a huge self-confidence where people are saying, hey, Pete, you can do it, or stick to it, or, be the best you can be, or, no one gave me a book. Say, hey, read this, son, because I couldn't read. I taught myself to read outside of school. And, I was like, there's got to be something. I've got to be good at something. Everyone's good at something, right? I knew that. And, I was, I'm not a religious guy, but I kind of looked up to the heavens, so to speak, and said, come on, give me something. Let me be good at something. If you let me be good at something, anything, I promise I'll stick to it. And, I'll work hard, and I'll do it for as long as I can to the best of my ability. Just give me something, anything. I'll take anything. And nothing happened. Nothing happened that year, the next year, the year after that, and almost the year after that, nothing. But I had an argument with a guy at a refuge I was staying at that I really liked, and they kicked me out because we had a fight. And I got put in this refuge that I didn't want to go to. But this refuge, when I used to go and walk to the bottle, I used to walk past karate dojo. And I went, hey, that's cool. I thought, hard work, discipline, karate, they're badass motherfuckers. I think I always liked the Korean flag better, because the
Yes.
Japanese flag is the just the red dot in the middle, right? And the Korean flag had the words around the edge, and they had like a yin yang. I thought that was better, but I thought, you know what, it's close enough.
Yes.
And I walked in and I said to the guy behind the counter, I said, "Hey man, what I need to have to do to become a karate champ?" It's a true story, man. I was that kid. Years later, the guy who was behind the counter, his name was Johnny. He said, "Pete, when you came in, after you left, I went back and told the guys, and the officer said, man, this crazy big-ass kid just walked in." And he said, what does he need to do to be a karate champ? And they said, they all had a giggle at me saying, yeah, he's some crazy kid. But I was serious. And Johnny said to me, turn up at 6 o'clock, wear something comfortable. It's $50 a month. And now I was in a refuge that I could stay longer. I think just before my 18th birthday. And I came down. I was really excited. Wear a pair of basketball shorts and a wife beater singlet. And I remember standing there in the back, and we're doing reverse punches like oiski, gyakuski, the basic punches that everyone sees in a karate kind of typical karate thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying so hard. I was like, "Fuck!" And my sensei said, "Peter, was that you?" I said, "Yeah, sorry, mate." He goes, "No, not sorry, mate." He's like, "Boss." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Not yeah, boss." I said, "Fuck." He goes, "Don't ever swear again." I'm thinking, who the fuck is this guy? It was in a nice area. It was in Des Moines, and I thought, he just thinks I'm some poor. I was an angry, 2 steps away from being a street kid. Young homeless. And I was like, oh. I thought, fuck this guy. I'll show him. I'll be the best guy who ever walked through his karate dojo doors. Turns out that guy, guy called Sensei Graham Porter, one of the most influential, if not, well, if it wasn't for him, he wouldn't have set me on that path to where I am now. And that's kind of how it started. He just had that certain, quality, and I just try to base myself on what I thought he was. He was tough. He was a pretty big guy. He comes second in the nationals. He had produced some pretty tough, Kyokushin karate guys back in the day. That was, Kyokushin was real badass,
Can you briefly just explain Kyokushin? It's effectively, it's bare knuckle fighting with no punching to the face. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's like if you imagine Muay Thai, so Thai boxing, without punches to the face, can't elbow to the face, can punch an elbow to the body, you can knee, you can't grab, not really, although every now and then they let you get away with it, but you can knee someone in the head and kick him in the head. They're known for being, tough, resilient, strong fighters, really good at smashing in low kicks. And the guy who started, a guy called Mas Oyama, they call him Sosai Mas Oyama, he was a real badass as well, went around the world, just trying to fight as many different people in as many different styles as possible to prove himself. And, he comes from Japan, place in Tokyo called Ikebukuro.
And I believe you also ended up getting a black belt in Kempo. How do you describe the differences between the two styles?
It's funny, actually. The difference between a Kempo and Kyokushin is very little. Kempo, of course, started in Hawaii, a Japanese guy. But it was in Chinatown. So what happened, most karate are very, very, very similar.
Mm.
Some of the patterns or katas or whatever you want to call them can be a little different. But most of them, 6 of one, half dozen the other. Karate derived from me teaching you or me teaching one other person or, or 1 or 2 people. And they developed it for that person. Does that make sense? So if he's a big guy, you're going to teach him these things. So that's the most beneficial. If they're really small and, I'm going to teach them this way. A little bit like BJJ. It was developed, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was developed so the little guy could beat the big guy. It wasn't. Right. And that's what karate initially and essentially was as well. And the biggest difference between any style, whether it's Kyokushin, Kempo, Seido, Ichigeki, whatever, is slight variations on the person who was taught by, who's ever teacher. So in Kyokushin, in Kempo, because it comes from Hawaii in Chinatown. On one side, there was some guys, with some Kali sticks doing Filipino stick fighting. And they went, you know what, that shit's good. We're going to add that. And there was another guy next door doing, Chinese Kung Fu. And he went, you know what, some of the stuff, because, of course, karate, lots of the roots of karate comes from Kung Fu. There's some parts they took out, especially really typical of Japanese martial arts to become very singular. Anything that's outside of it, they just want to perfect a few certain things. So there were some things that they have still in Kung Fu that they took out. And then, so the Kempo guy said, hey, we're going to add that back in. And the guy said, yeah, man, that really works. So that's really the biggest difference. Kyokushin is more classically Japanese, and Kempo has some other things. So it has a bit of Filipino stick fighting in it, which is cool. And it has a little bit of Chinese Kung Fu.
So I'm just a few years younger than you. So my formative years were spent watching the UFC, where, within those sort of first UFCs that they started making fun of a lot of traditional martial arts, and things sort of automatically moved towards Muay Thai. And one of the big things that was written off with it is the idea of kata. Now, I teach BJJ at a karate school as well, so I do some of the classes, but kata is still intrinsic into it. What's your view on that, and I guess the benefits to it, or how have you evolved your thinking around that?
It's really, really simple. If you look at it, learning to read and learning to fight is the same thing. When you learn to read, you learn your ABCs, and then you learn your small words. And then you learn your sentences, then your paragraphs, and then a full page or a chapter, and then a book, right? So when you learn how to fight, now I'm not talking about learning how to teach karate, but when you learn how to fight, you have basics, and then you have putting those basics together. So say, when you see karate going up and down in a forward stance during a reverse punch, you go, what the fuck are these people doing? Well, they're learning that small section to punch and move at the same time, or to kick and move, or kick and block at the same time, or punch, kick, and move. So they're learning small sections of it. Okay. And then kata, or forms, is what they're doing, is saying, we're going to put a whole bunch of common moves together, and we're going to practice them transitioning from one move to another move. Example, in BJJ, I know that you kind of been doing that for a while. How long have you been doing BJJ? I mean, you must have been doing it for quite some time now.
I started both at the same time. So I started both when I was still in Canada in 2003. So I saw a Yellow Page advert for BJJ at a Black Dragon karate studio, which is run by my master Gil, and he has a black belt in karate and Kali stick fighting that you were talking about. So I went into the BJJ class, and they were on one side of the gym, so they were subletting the space. And then I went and talked to him, and he's like, well, if you want to do both classes, we'll give you this X amount discount. So within a week, I was doing BJJ and stand-up striking from the same point in time. And so I've been doing both since 2003. And now I've moved up to Newcastle now, and I'm training I'm teaching BJJ there because I got my black belt from Anthony Parash not too long ago.
Yeah, I know, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so now I've sort of been reintroduced to karate, and I was given sort of an honorary black belt, if you will, in karate. And the guy that I teach under there, who runs the karate studio, is he considers his Shihan Cameron Quinn, who I think is a name that you'd know quite well.
Oh yeah, Cameron's awesome.
Yeah. So
okay. So would you want to get back to what I was saying? Where were we?
Yeah. So we're talking about kata, but I guess a good place to put that off is like, do you consider, because what I was saying is now with sort of the modern version of mixed fighting, kata is not taken seriously. So you're saying?
Okay. So here's my answer. Yeah. So
the building blocks.
So the next. So the next thing is you go from putting two things together, and then you're going to put it together in a group of set patterns. And then, then I guess you could say it's like shadow boxing. And they do that whether it's classical ballet, classical martial arts, or even boxing. Boxing, they teach you to jab. And then, they'll teach you, a good coach will teach you to jab, cross, move, step, forward step, back step. You say, hey, let's practice these bunch of moves first. Now, Japanese are really like to have things in a set order. So they love that. So if you ask me if I think kata is important, absolutely. It's just that most people don't know what it's used for. And there's so many people who do karate have got no fucking idea about what they're doing. It's not even funny, which is cool. I don't mind if people do karate and they're saying, hey, I do it for fun and it's really cool. I like all these movements. I don't really know how that applies because I can't actually fight anyone in anything, because anyone who does karate should be able to fight anyone, any style, and beat the fuck out of them if they're good.
Okay.
If not, if they say, oh, no, I just do this kind of karate. Say, that's bullshit, man. You're doing it. You're training for a tournament, which is cool. I used to be hard-ass about this, but I'm like, no, that's cool. I got no problems with that. But don't tell me you're a stone cold fucking Kuyokushin or stone cold fucking Kempo-kai or whatever it is if you can't beat everyone at all styles, because karate was never developed initially just to go in karate fucking tournaments, and it annoys the shit out of me. So many people don't know the difference, and the difference is like if you are taught karate by someone who knows karate, you're going to become a badass motherfucker. If you're taught karate by someone who knows how to teach you how to win karate tournaments, you're going to become a badass in those karate tournaments. It's really cool and really fun, and discipline and respect and honor and all that stuff, and a bit of culture and wearing a cool karate uniform. I get it. It's fun. But that's not what real karate is. If you have a look at guys like Mas Oyama, he fought it. He said, man, I'll fight anyone. And then when he got his ass kicked, he went, okay, we need to change that. It's the same with Kung Fu. Kung Fu's cool and fun and all the funky things they do. But, Bruce Lee got his ass kicked and said, hey, man, I got to improve that. And, these are the type of guys who went, hey, we've got a great style, but let's not forget what it was originally for. So why is send my kids there so I can have
that from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like, I'm not limiting this to karate, but it doesn't seem like a lot of traditional martial arts with the onset of things like MMA have chosen to adapt to that. A lot of them have just continued to sort of sit within their own silos and do their own thing.
You know what I think it is? Is what happened is, I was at Uchideshi in Japan. That means I lived in the dojo in Japan. And I went back and forth a whole bunch of times. So, especially with Kuyokushin, there was Mas Oyama, and he taught Nicholas Pettis. And Nicholas Pettis and we trained together all the time for K-1. And then we were in Sengoku and stuff like that. So it was, one person away from Mas Oyama. Same with guys like Cameron Quinn. He was like him, Mas Oyama. And what they taught was, if you really understand how to do karate, you got to put it all in. But what happened is a lot of people, and there's a lot of things they just teach in Japan. I've never seen taught outside of Japan. It's like, well, this is real Kuyokushin, and this is Kuyokushin for the rest of the world.
All right. Okay.
And it was like, cool. Don't tell anyone, Pete. This is what we're doing. All right.
Interesting. Okay. So how did that?
I had to bring it to the masses. Striking was, particularly 70s, 80s, and 90s. Striking was the be all and end all. And then now we know that if you're a badass wrestler, you pick someone, dump them on the head. If you're really good, Brazilian BJJ, that's choke you the fuck out. That's just see you later. But what happens is these big karate organizations said, to give this to most amount of people, most of the time, we need to come within a set group of rules. And because culturally in the West, we saw hitting someone on the ground or doing something like that on the ground as, or you don't kick a man while he's down or jump on top of him and wrestle. I mean, that was like, once it goes to the ground, it's finished, right? They didn't stand up. So they went, I'm guessing, hey, let's just teach them this half. And then, maybe there'll be a few people who want to do the rest of it later on.
So Mark Matthews, the gentleman who runs Newcastle Karate, where I teach out of, he was saying that from his understanding, Kata was introduced as sort of an easy way to develop self-defense for the military, and that's why it was done in that style. So is that a different group, or is someone got it wrong, or is that how it was sort of introduced for military purposes?
No, not that I've ever heard. It's not, I can see why someone would think that, or why someone would say that to someone else. It's not without its merit. But
so the
way that you teach the military. So if I was teaching the karate to the military, someone coming in, with a stabbing motion, or coming over the top with a knife or something. And military, most of the time, we're just going to shoot you. There's a drone going to evaporate your suburb. But as they come to do something, you want a set group of movements practiced again and again and again. That become what we call unconscious competence. You do it the first time, you're not sure, unconscious incompetence. Do it a few times and it's conscious competence. Hey, I can do it if I think about it. And then unconscious competency is when you can do it without thinking about it. Target comes up, shoot the target falls down. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You do it enough times.
Yeah,
doesn't matter where you are. If you're holding a gun, something jumps up, bang, falls down. So, yes, but I still see a lot of people will say something like that, but not really understand how to teach it or what's the practical application of it. Like if I'm teaching you in MMA to defend against a single or double leg, sprawl, parry, take their back, rear naked choke. Is that kata, or are we just drilling?
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
okay. So
does that make sense?
It does. And what I'm getting out of this conversation is that, in the introduction, we mentioned sort of all the different spheres of fighting, but it sounds very much like you still consider yourself a karate guy at heart. So do you want to tell me what happened there? How did you move this into kickboxing, and how did that lead to professional fighting for you?
Good question. So I kept on going back to Japan.
Okay.
The first time I was at Uchideshi, so that means live in at the headquarters in Ikebukuro in Tokyo for Kuyokushin. And when I was there with Francisco Filho, Globe Fatosis, Nicholas Pettis, and these guys were all, they were all talking about sending these guys over to K-1. Sam Greco had just signed with K-1, and there was a lot of talk about it. It's like this was the elite of karate going into the elite of kickboxing. Back in the day, K-1 was just so epically big in Japan. It's just, I don't think there's anything that can compare with it.
Could you take a second and explain that? Some of the people who are listening to this aren't going to understand what K-1 is. Do you want to just explain sort of its formation and what its purpose was?
Yeah, sure. K-1 was a worldwide organization that had the biggest tournaments in Japan under a modified kickboxing, Thai boxing, karate rules. So the head of Saito Kaikan came up with the rules, which was some kicks from karate, Western boxing, and Thai boxing knees, but you couldn't grapple, couldn't throw elbows, and to begin with, it was only for heavyweights. So the biggest, baddest, people on the planet come and beat the shit out of each other under these hybrid rules, and it was only 3-3-minute rounds with a 1-minute break. So the athletes could be really big. You weren't going before that. There was you could fight for a kickboxing world title and go 10 rounds.
Yeah,
like boxing.
So it's designed for spectators because it's the tournament format, short 3-minute rounds. Let them kill each other and advance effectively.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Big, tough, scary guys, super exciting, lots of knockouts, and unless you're,
so
a war axe, you have no intention of ever going anywhere near that tournament, except if you're watching.
This will be
really, it was incredibly popular in Japan.
Yeah, and I sort of remember it from that time period when I was getting into this. I remember, Jerome LeBanner, Dutch Lumberjack, Peter Ertz, these sorts of guys, Andy Hoog.
Yeah.
Can you can you tell me sort of how did this come to your attention? So you were in Japan at this point in time. What I'm trying to get across from this is a lot of people don't. K1 just sort of popped up and was there, but you seem to have been around when they were like, hey, let's try to finalize this style. And if I'm not mistaken, K1 was a year or year and a half still before even the first UFC, if I'm not mistaken.
94.
94.
When was the first UFC?
UFC 1 was 93. So maybe that happened. And then they said, let's just focus on stand-up.
Yeah. But K1 just seemingly was huge from the get-go. But it had the elite of the elite, like the Dutch, from John Voss Gym and Krajicki. They went to Thailand and they seen what the Thais could do. They were all doing, karate before. They were always doing Kuyokushin. And they went, hey man, we're gonna add in this, some of these things that Thai boxers do because it's awesome. They've got these awesome low kicks and, they're more effective with their knees. So we're gonna do that. And then, kickboxing and say, well, they obviously the head punches with gloves on. So we're gonna do that. And then it just kind of attracted, the best heavyweight karate guys as well. And then guys, of course, like Jerome Labana comes from Sapp, right? Which is the French kickboxing martial art form. Yeah. So, it just seemed to attract, it just kept on getting, physically and literally bigger and bigger. The people, the tournaments, like, tens of thousands of people at tournaments like every other week. Finalized in the Tokyo Dome in front of 70, 80,000
I remember
people.
the audiences when they were showing it. Yeah, around that period. I certainly do. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm there and these guys are going and I'm like, hey man, I want to do that. And Kyokushin's like, nah. I'm like, well, I'm Australian, right? And, I was a street kid, so I'm not used to anyone telling me what to do. I'm like, oh. And I got back and I told my karate instructor, I said, that's, they're bullshit. They can't tell me what to do, can't do it. At that time, and I was, so I just got back from Japan. I just turned 21. And I was angry as fuck. My brother just died of a heroin overdose.
Okay.
And I've just been told I can't do the only thing that I think that I have a chance to improve my life. So my karate instructor, tried to talk to everyone in Japan, Kyokushin, and, let me do what I wanted to do. And he just, we tried to do it the right way. And he just basically said, Pete, do what you got to do, man. So I just went in every single karate tournament I could find. Anything that I thought I could have a full contact fight in, I went. I started kickboxing. I started boxing. I joined Black Belt Pro in Randwick. And I just took every fight I could. And I said, this is it. I'm not going to, I was so angry at the world. I was like, if I don't fight, I'm going to kill someone somewhere else, or I'm going to do something stupid, or I'm going to, become an alcoholic or drug addict myself. So I just worked so I had enough money to train, somewhere to live, and fight. And I just fought. I was having like 17, 18 fights a year. I became undefeated amateur world champion. I was also undefeated as a boxer. Not exactly a big feat. It was only one fight. And then I just kept fighting. Just like fight. It just, and I had my only focus on anything was get back to Japan, fight K1.
So how do you do that? Take me through that path. You're doing all these tournaments now. You're winning them. How does the opportunity come knocking?
So what happened was a guy called Tarek Saleh started doing K1, and then they had like entry tournaments or super fights that you could, if you won that, you could go to the next level. I was managed by Lucy Tui. I just started training out of Mundine's gym in Redfern.
Yeah. I was just reading Mark Hunt's book and her name is littered all over that thing.
Lucy Tui?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. She was my manager. She looked after me as my amateur. And yeah, me and Mark were both at Mundine's gym at the same time. If you read his book, there's another guy called Orkan Umatangi, who's just as good as both of us, but by the weird twist of life and fate, he just lose when he probably should have won, or it's kind of crazy because he was just as good as us. Because me, Mark, and Auckland used to, every time we sparred, we just sit there and beat the crap out of each other. Sometimes Mark would be a better, sometimes Auckland would be a bit better, sometimes I'd be a bit better. And K1 and Kuyokushin was still messing with my life. They were trying to stop. They were telling K1 not to let me fight, that they looked after me and they weren't letting me in. So, I'd win something and I'd, have automatic entry into the next tournament. They wouldn't let me go. And I'd be just like, it just drove me insane. Like I was like, I was just a ball of anger. But, instead of, drinking myself to death or punching the fuck out of people on the street or my girlfriend or whatever, I just went to the gym and I just took every single fight I could. When I say every single fight, like one time I fought for a world Thai boxing world title in New Zealand in Dunedin on a Friday night, or maybe it was, it was a long weekend, Saturday night. I jumped on a plane, went to the top of the island, waited till the morning, jumped on another plane. I drove in a car to the top of the North Island, waited till the morning, jumped on a little plane, went to the main airport in Auckland, jumped on another plane, went back to Sydney, went back to my house in Redfern, got changed, packed my bag, had a snooze for a couple of hours, went down to Melbourne, and on that Sunday night, I fought a K1 eliminator fight. They got me into the K1 Oceania. So that we in 2 days, 2 pro fights in 2 different countries.
Right.
And the boxing authority said, "Pete, did you have another fight?" I said, "Oh yeah, but it was in New Zealand." I said, "Pete, you're not meant to." I said, but I thought because it's in another country, it would be okay. And I said, "Pete, stop trying to be stupid. We know you're not that dumb." I'm like, okay, well, they said, "Don't do it again." So okay, but and then so I won against Chris Christopolidis. Who was from Melbourne. I beat him, and then they gave me the entry into Oceania. And then, you win Oceania, you get to go to a super fight, and so Yokohama or or one of they're still massive, like
yes,
freaking 40,000 people come watch it. And then my first fight in Japan was against a guy called Jan the Giant, who was exactly that. He was a massive, big. White guy from South Africa.
Nordke.
Became a good friend.
Nordke or something like that.
Yeah. That's exactly who it is. So I beat him, and then I lost. I lost to Adam Watt, a legendary Australian fighter. But I got my toe in the door, and they said, okay, well, and then every opportunity I got, I just said yes.
Stylistically, it took me a while to understand this because I've never trained over them with them. But you talked about karate, traditional kickboxing. Dutch kickboxers who came to dominate in K1 have a very particular style. How do you identify? I've got my own perceptions of what I've heard by other people, but how would you describe their style and what makes it difficult or has led to them winning so many tournaments?
I think it's the way that they train.
Because they go hard, don't they? They don't really have an off button in any form of sparring.
Yeah, they don't. Certain parts of Holland, it's certainly tough, and there's a lot of big mean bosses there. Oh, super nice guys, but they're tough fighters. But it's the way that they train is almost like a kata with each other. So instead of hitting pads so much, they'll hit each other. So we'll get padded up to the eyeballs, and we'll do drills with each other and just drill it again and again and again. So when they come to fight, they're battle hardened, and it's so popular in Holland. It was crazy. I remember once I was there with a friend of mine who had a fight in Amsterdam Arena. Besides the fact that Amsterdam Arena, when it was fighting, just epic. The Dutch love kickboxing. And kickboxing loves the Dutch. But we were at a hotel, and I'm like, oh, is it here? And they said, no, but they had 2 rings set up. And they said, there's another tournament on the same night. But there's 2 rings going simultaneously. That's how popular it is. It was just a heavyweight tournament. Everyone was heavyweight. It was like, what the fuck is going on? And, you meet guys who had 45 fights and 2 losses that you never heard of. And you're like, how is it possible? This guy's 42-0 or 42-2 rather. And I don't even know who he is. I've never heard of him.
Yeah, right.
They just produced awesome fighter after awesome fighter.
Because I know what you're talking about.
Really cool, super cool.
In terms of the sparring where they sort of stand in front of each other and throw combos. But the style of Dutch kickboxing, I didn't fully understand until someone said what they're really doing is sort of Western boxing where they throw, a jab, cross, hook, but they finish everything off with like a low kick as hard as they can. They said, and it was explained to me that stylistically, that's what you'll see out of it, sort of Western boxing with low kicks. Would you say that's an apt description, I guess, of the Dutch kickboxing style?
With tie knees.
With tie knees. Okay. All right, well, I guess that explains over him.
Karate low kicks, Western boxing, tie knees. Perfect way to explain it. Yep.
Perfect.
The best of everything, because that's really what John Voss and Krajicki and Hippolyte, all those guys back in the day were developing, and man, they developed it.
So I
dominated.
And I want to talk about, because, if you still hang out on martial arts forums and read online, your name is still thrown around for the fights, especially for the first one that you had with Badr Hari coming up. And there's still GIFs and video being thrown around of the Rolling Thunder, because it's one of the few times where it lands where it almost kills a man. So where did you, because you have become synonymous with that move. The Rolling Thunder is now a Peter Graham move, but it takes a bit of balls to sort of decide that you're going to throw that in a ring. So where did you sort of learn that, and at what point did you have that predetermined that you were going to try to land this within the match?
So I'll answer the question in sections. First of all, where I got it from was a guy called Gary O'Neill, who's a Kuyokushin guy from Queensland who trained with Shane Cameron Quinn, used to do it. And he did it like he was a member of the Bolshoi Ballet, man. It was fucking beautiful to watch. And he was a middleweight at best, and he'd be knocking out heavyweights all fucking day. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is awesome. So I want to do that. Anyway, so I practiced, I went karate tournaments to not really much success with it, but I always practiced. It was part of my repertoire. But what really changed it for me, I was at Mundine's gym, and there was this guy doing capoeira, and he was doing roll kicks, and he was doing them slightly different. And I went, fuck, I said, hey, dude, can you teach me that? And he looked up to me and went, you're too big. You can't do this stuff.
Okay.
I'm like, what the fuck? So anyway, as you can imagine, I just kind of went, oh, well, maybe he's right, and looked for something else. No, I watched this guy all the time, and what he does is he faked when he was doing it, when they were training with other capoeira guys, he pretend to throw a right hand, and it'd leave the other guy open. Now, capoeira guys were really flexible. They lean right back and can touch the ground and stuff like that. So they get out of the way for it. I thought, man, I reckon I can land that if I can get, because there was lots of guys who did Thai boxing or came from a Thai boxing background. There's actually a lot of Dutch fighters who stylistic have a Thai boxing style of Dutch fighting more so than a kickboxing, which means that they'll lean back out of the way of punches as opposed to slipping them like a boxer.
Right.
And I went, okay, so I can, if I can get the guys to slip into a faked right hand, then I'll be able to hit them with my left foot as a spinning heel kick, but then into the roll kick. So I just worked on developing it like that, and then it just started to land. And then, unfortunately, good mate Badr Hari, what an amazing fucking athlete.
Let's talk about this guy for a second, because again, there's going to be a lot of people who don't know who he is. You go in, I think when you guys meet, you might be a decade older than him. I don't think he's big on the scene at the time, but as the stories come out over the years,
he just blown onto the scene. He just blown up hard. He just come on, and he was like, he just back kicked the fuck out of Stefan Leko. The sickest, most brutal back kick you've ever seen. Look it up if you haven't seen it, people.
Stiff as a board on the way down before he even goes down.
And he was trash talking everyone, and he was the new, but not only bad boy, but he was the new man on the block. Everyone's like, this kid is fucking awesome. Anyway, so he was waffling on and telling he's going to beat the crap out of everyone. And of course, since K1 wanted me to not really be there because Kuyokushin was saying, look, if you can find a way possibly not to use him, don't.
I was going to ask you about that. We'll talk about that in a bit, because you seem to disappear from the K1 scene as quickly as you arrived for some unknown reason. And it sounds like you're alluding to why.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what happened. Anyway, so, then they wanted to get Badr Hari into the top 8. They want to make him top 16. So now that this got leaked, they said the easiest way there is through Oceania. And man, everyone in Oceania is like, what the fuck? We were just livid. I was livid. I'm like, man, add to my ball of happiness. They're now telling everyone that, in Oceania.
I'm picturing you, Cepho, and Hunt going, okay.
Yeah, going, Cepho was more of a superstar than me and Mark. Cepho was, like almost half a generation in front of us or something. So Cepho was still the man. He was, super cool. Anyway, so, this guy calmed down, and it's a press conference. We're there, and he's just mouthing off to everyone, talking everyone down. And I'm like, in my head, I want to say, shut the fuck up and, jump up and beat the crap out of him. But I thought, if I do that, I won't get the fight. If I don't get the fight, I can't win. If I can't win, I can't make the money. And if I can't make the money and can't win, I can't go to Japan and make more money and be more famous and make my life better, whatever. But anyway, so, I knew this, and I was talking to my best mate called Tony Dow, who's in the corner for the fight. You'll see him there. And I said, Tony, man, this guy is just mouths off to everyone. And if you have a look at his press conferences, says the same thing. I said, let's practice some snappy answers to his, stupid comebacks. And so me and him, we were just practicing. And I thought, I reckon, I said, he's a good fighter, but if I can get him angry and unfocused, he'll make mistakes. I guarantee it, because I
remember this clip. I can't remember what it is, but I think you're wearing sunnies in it or something. I can picture the table, the panel in the pre-fight match.
Yeah. If you've ever seen a highlight of a kickboxing gift or something, you've seen that. You've seen millions and millions of times. I got like a black jacket on with camo pants.
Yeah.
And pair of sunnies.
Someone put this together. I'm sure you've seen it. It's like a 2 or 3 minute video talking about all the hype, and it leads up to the Rolling Thunder at the end.
Yeah, well, what happened is, there was an argument, and, I basically, he went, fuck you, he goes, fuck you, sit down. He was like annoyed because, got one up on him on the talking. And then he walked over me after the press conference. He was looking at me, and I'm like looking at him going, like, what the fuck's this guy's problem? I'm like, cool, if you want to talk up at the press conference, that's cool. I don't mind. I was like, whatever, dude. Say whatever you want. I don't care. We're all going to make more money and we'll all be more famous. It's good for everyone, right? Mm. But then afterwards, he's still giving me eyeballs, and he walked up and I'm thinking, is this guy fucking mad? Are you serious? You want to keep going? You really want to go again? And he's leant over and tried to kiss me. And, call me kooky and old-fashioned, but...
You say some not-so-kind words.
Yeah. My father kissed me as a baby, but that's kind of where the man kissing stopped. So I pushed him off, and in a split second, I thought, if I was thinking about hitting him with a left hook, you don't even see it in the video. It must have happened in, half a eon of a second. I thought, if I hit him and I hurt him, there's not going to be a fight. So I tackled him.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's really good, man. It was a single leg or double leg. What are you trying to do there? I'm like, no, I just tackled him. I just thought, fuck. Because at that time, I wasn't doing any MMA at all.
Yes. Well, it's probably a bit too early for that. And Badr Hari goes on to become even more dislikable over the years.
He became despicable. And then, the fight. So what happened going back to the Rolling Thunder is I noticed in the second round, I thought, okay, he's a bit more tired now. It was a super high tempo fight, So I hit a roll kick, I faked it with the right, and it just clipped him a little bit. I thought, what I need to do now is be. He just needs to be he just missed it. I thought if he can just be a little bit more tired, and I save my energy right before I'm going to try it right before the end of the last round, because I could feel he was gaining momentum. I thought, okay, so just try to stay super focused and like keep my body relaxed, and but he just kept on pushing the tempo. So it was tough. So and of course it's a fight. You've got some psychopath trying to knock your fucking head off. It's not exactly an environment that's easy to go, hey, relax, be cool, man. But I did, and he did exactly the same thing he did, halfway through the second round. But this time he was just a little bit slower, which meant that my foot connected perfectly. And the rest is history.
You the second match doesn't go your way. I think you guys ended up meeting twice. I mean, when
3 times.
The
second match was in Hong Kong, and what they did was the whole fight he kept holding on to me, and I'm like, I'm yelling at the ref, saying, "Hey man, let him get up, let's fight," and it was like messy and horrible, and I was trying to push him off. It's like, come on, let's fight, and they gave him the fight. I was so angry. And the third fight was in Dubai, which I lost as well. But I had a super tough fight before. They only gave me a really short break. They gave him like a really easy fight. I had a really tough fight. Mine went the distance. He knocked out Stefan Leko, funnily enough, almost instantly. And then he had like a 2-hour break. I fought this other young gun. It was a super tough fight. And they basically got me straight back out. And I was completely fucking tired. And I took a knee. It was, I feel bad about it, but I was like, look, I'm not fucking stupid.
Okay, so and then just to clarify then, because as I said, you went missing from the K1 scene where it seemed like you would become a staple of it. You reckon this had to do with the connections with Kuyokushin karate in Japan, as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, so when I first got there, even after the Jan fight, Jan Noje, K1 called me over to the K1 desk and said, "Hey Pete, so your manager is you're signed with Kuyokushin, right?" I said, "No, I'm working with Lucy Tui and Tarek Solak, and Alex Tui is my coach." They said, "Well, the Kuyokushin said you have a signed contract." So I don't have a fucking signed contract with them. What are you talking about? They said, and then they're trying to say, "Well, you're a black belt with Kuyokushin, and you're trying to." I said, I signed on to do karate in Australia. I was at Uchideshi in Japan. Like now, 20 years later, I realize I see their point of view. I didn't understand that. But it was like, you know what? In Australia, karate is karate, kickboxing is kickboxing, 2 different entities. And no one ever told me, so bad luck. But they kept stifling my career. They kept stopping it. They kept saying, don't use him. I didn't find out all this out until later. But in saying that, I got angry. I got upset. But I just kept doing it. And that's why I started boxing. They wouldn't let me kickbox, so I'll box.
Okay, don't jump ahead of me here. Don't jump ahead. Okay. So who is it? Does that mean is that your dojo in Japan, or is this actually like the Japanese Kuyokushin Karate Association?
Kuyokushin at the time.
Right. Okay. So it is the association body that's undermining you.
So I'm kind of scared saying this. I haven't actually said it to anyone ever publicly. So I hope they don't, there's some badasses there, man. Hope they can come and whack me.
Okay.
That's the one before he got whacked.
Yeah. Well, that might be the end of it for me as well then. Hey, look, maybe we'll catch you, have a beer before. Anyway, what during this time period as well, I'm a little bit more familiar with Pride as an organization only because I was more interested in MMA, but they were the Yakuza and everyone seemed to have their hands sort of in both pots, although we know in Pride they were effectively funded by them. What do you remember about my understanding is that effectively both organizations had no policy on substance abuse or anything, so they were actively encouraging the use of steroids and that sort of activity to create the biggest monsters available to fight. I'm sure you've seen some using, but can you just sort of commentate on what you saw at that period, or I guess the overall policy on that sort of stuff?
Well, they went into talking policy with the fighters. But from my understanding, my kind of info from the guys I was with and hanging out with is, do whatever you want as long as it's not any amphetamines.
Fair enough.
And everyone seemed to do everything. I remember once I was talking to my management. I tell you another story. It's kind of a little funny. I was talking to a guy who was in K-1. He said, "Hey, Pete, what supplements you taking, man? You're doing really well. What are you taking?" So, well, I'm taking a multivitamin, a bit of creatine, and if I got some money, I'll take some. I got some protein powder.
Children vitamins,
sponsor, And he goes, "No, you fucking idiot." He goes, "What are you taking? What's he taking? Testosterone or Dianabol or Deca or Stanozol?" Or I'm like, "Oh, nothing." I remember he looked at me like, "You're a fucking idiot. What the fuck's wrong with you, kid?" And I'm like, "I'm okay." And then I was asked later. They said, "Look, you should really do it, and we can do it properly." And this was management back then.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm winning, and I don't really see I'm big. I'm always been a big dude. I don't think being any bigger is going to help me. And I don't really feel I need to look like like an Adonis to win fights. I want to win fights. I don't want to win front cover of GQ magazine. And they said, "Look, why don't you try it? We'll set it up properly, and you can try it." So I said, "Okay." So it was totally kosher with K1 and everyone knew it.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Okay." And I did for one fight. And I said, "Look," it just doesn't seem to work for me. I said, "I don't, I was bigger, but I didn't feel any better. I actually, I could feel the weight of the muscle. I'm like, I think I fight better without it." I went my entire career without ever having to see a doctor for, other than getting my eyes stitched or something. Like I never had, I never went to a physio. I never broke a leg. I never tore, any tendons. No broken bones, or I was fine. I built like a brick shit house. So I'm like, it seems to be working. Why you want to try to mess with it?
So what do you do? You tried it once, or you cycled it for one fight, effectively?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, everyone knew everyone else was geared up to the freaking eyeballs. But anyone who's ever known me, I've been big forever. It's just like I hold weight, not a problem. I lose weight pretty quick too. But I also eat huge amounts of food. But I ate more then. I kind of eat a little less now.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are going to want an insight into how contracts are structured. I mean, you've moved around through different organizations, but at the time, was it just single tournament, or, these days especially with organizations like UFC and what you ended up doing with Bellator, you sign multi-fight deals. How are these typically structured? If it's K1, I assume there's single fight. Then if you advance, bonus on there. Because for a lot of outsiders like myself looking into this, it's a pretty precarious job if you're not under contract of where your next meal is going to come from.
Yeah, that's exactly it. For me, a lot of the time was, here's a contract written in Japanese, sign at the bottom, we're going to pay you that much.
That was it.
And you're like, okay, that was it. Most of the time, it's like written in Japanese. You're like, I said, what does it say? They say, well, it says you're going to fight and we'll pay you this amount of money. The good thing about Japan, they always paid you the cash. They just give it to a big wad of cash. Here's your money. So, but you'd have win bonuses and knockout bonuses. And in tournaments, they'd if you won the tournament, you get to progress to a super fight. But the amount of money was so different for different athletes. It was incredible. If you read the story about how much Mark Hunt made to enter the K1 Grand Prix the year he won it. Same with me. I was like, I remember I had a super fight booked to fight Sam Greco, and I was like, man, this is awesome. I'm so pumped. I'm gonna make a whole shitload of money. It was the most amount of money I ever made. And then I had a super fight booked for Ernesto Hoost. And then we're going upstairs in the hotel, and me and my coach, Alex Tui, bump into Peter Ertz and his mate and his coach and say, hey, you're going to fight Sam Greco. I said, no, man, we're fighting Ernesto Hoost. I said, no, man, Ernesto Hoost is, his psoriasis is playing up. He's not fighting. You're going to fight Sam Greco. I was like, well, how come no one told me? And this shit used to happen to me all the time in Japan. It was just, that's how the fight game goes, right? Anyway, so I'm like, all right, whatever. So I fought Sam. I smashed him. I stopped him in 2 rounds. And Sam's really cool. I love that guy. He's, super supportive and everything. And after he's talking to me, he said, hey, Pete, how much did you make for the fight? And I'm like, man, I don't really tell people how much I made for the fight. It's kind of, I don't tell people. He said, look, you're going to tell me because I'm going to tell you how much I made. I want to tell you something. I'm like, okay, well, I made $30,000. It's $30,000 US dollars. I thought I had made more money than God. And I was so happy. He goes, come with me. So we went upstairs, went into his hotel room. He said, look at this. And he pulled out his contract. And he said, see that? He goes, that's how much I made. I made $300,000.
Wow. Okay.
And I went, fuck. And he goes, Pete, I'm telling you this not to brag, but he goes, just remember, man, you can't bank ego. Of course, there was my little fucked up part of my brain that went, he's just saying that because I beat him. He's just trying to say, sucked in, I got more money. But it got through my thick head that it's a good point. You can't bank ego. Everyone's blowing smoke up your ass. They're giving you gifts. Everyone's friendly to you, and shit changes dramatically, really fast. But that little piece of information was really, really good. And he said it from the right place, and he was a good guy, and I'm happy he kind of gave me that guidance. But most of the other guys who've been there for a while, they're all super cool guys too. But the contracts were like, this is what it is. We're not negotiating. Not for me anyway. It was like, this is what we're going to give you, otherwise you don't fight. And I just wanted to fight. I wanted to fight K1. Like now I know how much some of the other guys have made, and I think to myself, fuck. But I also know other guys who've been fucking ripped off so bad by managers and organizations. So, you know what? I guess I'm somewhat in the middle. So, yeah, I'm always grateful for what I got, man. I love fighting K1. I love fighting in Japan and Sengoku. I just love fighting. But, yeah, it's AC/DC says it the best, right? It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Fair enough. Only because you had mentioned Ernesto Hoost, I think this still came out a couple of years after you were there, but what do you remember about Bob Sapp? Because he came in and what was it? I can't remember. It was the first or second time he just pushed Hoost around, put him in the corner, and then just beat him up. He seemed to do really, really well in K1, and then as we sort of know, as he spent the second half of his career seemingly just taking dives for cash.
Bob Sapp's still my friend. We talk. He's a good guy. He's also an unbelievably talented actor. And you know what? He was a really good friend of Sam Greco. Sam said, "Hey, try this thing in Japan." And I've met a lot of athletes in my life, but Bob Sapp is he's such a large human being. And his ability to turn it on when he wanted to was instantaneously. It was unbelievable. But he's not a fighter, but he's just so big and athletic that if someone that big hits you, that's it, show's over. But there was lots of things he used to do to mess with people's heads. Like what everyone else saw of him publicly, that's his persona. Sometimes he acts a bit like the buffoon or, the clown or whatever. But if you talk to him, he's really articulate. He's got a degree in veterinary science, and he's a really smart, articulate guy. But he wasn't a fighter. When we were in Holland and he was fighting Peter Urs, I remember we're backstage and I'm saying, "Come on, man, Bob, let's go, man. You're going to be fine." We trained for this because we were training together in Tokyo, and I could tell he was really scared. He's not a fighter. He's a really kind of more of a soft guy. He's more of a, an intellect, almost a nerd. But when he first went, he's like, "Fuck it, I've got to do this. This is my chance." I can. He was smart enough to see that he was unique enough that it's exactly what the Japanese people wanted. They did, man. They wanted him. I mean, he still holds the world record, unless it was beaten by Badr Hari in the last fight, for the most amount of money made by one fighter in a year. It's like $17 million in 1 year, or it was a huge amount of money.
Oh, this would have been around the time that they were trying to get Mike Tyson to fight him. Then I think they were doing K-1 in Vegas around that time.
Yep. He had like 1,000 sponsorship deals. 1,000 sponsorship deals. Wow. From CD players to dildos. Literally.
Okay, fair enough.
Fucking insane. They were offering, huge amounts of money for anyone could get a photo of his prick. I'm like, man, that's crazy. We were talking about it. He goes, Pete, you don't understand, man. We're trying to take a photo of my dick. It's hilarious. So, but when he went there and when he wanted to put it on, he knew that if he just landed any of those big bombing overhands, it was good night. I mean, you got to understand, it's like Ernesto Hoost is he's exactly what his nickname is. It's perfect. He moves, his balance. I remember sparring with him at Super Pro in Thailand, because all the Dutch guys go to Super Pro. It's like a Dutch-owned Thai boxing gym in Koh Samui. And this is after he'd retired. And he'd put a weight on and his guards down, but still, what was coming. Jab cross, left to the body, right low kick, but he'd still get you. It's like he really was, and he is the Muhammad Ali of heavyweight kickboxing. And so to be beaten by, George Foreman, so to speak, twice is epic, which goes to show that any given day, this is the thing why I love fighting so much, is just like, doesn't matter. Mm. You can be the guy who's stylistically perfect, or you can just be a big, badass motherfucker and hit someone and put them in the next week. But it also means that if you're good enough and you can do it, you can make it. You can be the guy who wins. You can be the champ. And that's exciting. That on any given day, you're in with a 50-50 chance of winning a fight.
What do you think? Because the biggest name that moved across, who never ended up winning a title in either organization, in K1 or then into Pride and UFC, was Mirko Cro Cop. But the hype surrounding him at the time is probably, to me, it was on like McGregor type levels.
I just think it's hard to, if you win a big fight and then maybe it was having the ability to back it up and replicate that against another A-class fighter. I think that was tough. Who knows what was going on in his life or how his training camps were. The real thing, not the media covered event. But it's true. To win a tournament, an A-class tournament against three A-class fighters on their game in one, 2 or 3 hour timetable, time period is fucking punishing. I mean, it takes skill, tenacity, fitness, strength, ability, and a bit of luck.
What do you think happened to K1? They started doing more events. They opened up the weight classes, and over time, the value of the product began to diminish, and it's since been usurped by Glory Kickboxing. What do you think sort of happened to K1, or with any of the guys that you know? Did they provide any insights?
You want to know what actually happened, or you want to know what I feel was the reason? Are you asking what happened legally, or what happened?
Well, tell me.
How they lost their what I feel is that how they lost their popularity was because they were trying to up the ante on super freaks. Bob Sapp worked so well. Let's get Hongman Choi, and then let's see who else we can get. We'll get we'll get not Kanishki. What's the Hawaiian sumo guy? Oh, my brain has stopped working for a second. Anyway, so they just kept on trying to get more and more freaks. But I think what people liked about K1 is that there was, the athletes were freaky as opposed to a freaky person.
And then and then you said like the reality of the situation was something. You said there were sort of two parts to it.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it lost its popularity, because people want to see, when you see the very, very, very best strikers in the world sit there and duke it out in that format, it was awesome. You don't want to watch two juiced up basketball players, try to duke it out, because the skill level wasn't there, so it lost some interest. That's what I feel. And also, the head of K1 went to for tax fraud.
Sorry, what went to jail for tax fraud?
Yeah, that was common knowledge. But yeah, so I think that kind of put a spanner in the works.
Do you think, what do you sort of think of the overall state of kickboxing now in terms of its popularity at the moment compared to when you were in the midst of it?
It's, it's on a slow boil, but I don't think anything, K1 was just special. It was like Pride. K1 and Pride at their peak, it was just another level, especially with K1. Pride, of course, but from a kickboxing point of view, K1 was just special. It just kept on producing awesome fight after awesome fight, and that was, exciting.
Mm. Earlier you had mentioned that you were sort of being pushed out of the organization, and that led to you moving into boxing. Let's talk about that. Where do those opportunities start to pop up? There's not many kickboxers who move into boxing. I remember. You remember a guy named Matt Skelton, who was a English kickboxer. I think he was in the very early Pride stuff that went into boxing, but not a lot of guys do it. So for you, are you saying it was more out of necessity?
Well, I wanted to fight, so when I couldn't do that, I was like, okay, I'll box. You can't do K1 and box in Japan. And then I did it, but then, so I was having more kickboxing fights, so, I stopped doing the boxing, but then I started to, it just whatever, like there are three levels, the three different styles that are most popular in the world, of course, is MMA, boxing, and kickboxing, whether that's K1 or Thai boxing. So if anyone offered me a fight in any of them, I'd just keep going. And if I kept winning and I got offered another fight, so if I ever saw a little crack, if I saw some light, I'd, jam my foot in the door and just kept on trying to get another fight. I was like, yep, I'll fight him. Yep. Promoters like fighters who get out there and just fight all the time. And they like it when you win. So I guess, most of the time I won. So I just kept on taking those opportunities. Same with MMA, it was just like when we first met, my MMA career was, it was going nowhere. But K1 had died in the ass, and boxing had gone flat. And I'm like, and I was training with, legendary Australian MMA and jiu-jitsu practitioner Larry Papadopoulos, who I'd known forever as well. And we just worked super hard in that.
So is that how you ended up at boxing works? Is that you were going, where do I move to now? And so you switched gyms, or you ended up at Larry's to learn grappling?
I moved back from Japan, and K1 had dried up, and there was no boxing that could make any money from. And I still had the opportunity to fight in MMA. So I spoke to Alex too. I said, hey, maybe I train with Harry. And Alex said, yeah, sure, because I want to do some MMA. It was, different style. I never did kickboxing with Larry. I never did MMA with Alex too. So I just kept working that. But Larry, of course, is an unbelievable wrestler, catch wrestler. Awesome. Was a third down in BJJ as well, and I've been doing forever. He was the ranked number one in shooter in Japan as well.
Very early stuff, 92 and stuff, that sort of period, yeah.
Yeah, man, badass from back in the day. So, we really worked on my MMA game. After coming back from Japan, I had a couple of fights there. I lost, and then I lost. I said, look, man, I got a connection in Russia. If you want to fight Alexander Emelianenko, sure.
So this fight kicks it all off, because I remember watching that fight, and he just attacked his legs mercilessly, and it was like he didn't seem to know what to do. Did that become sort of the springboard, which is what sort of set up Bellator and KSW for you? Yeah,
because I was like, okay, far out, man. I just couldn't get a break. I'm like, man, these guys I keep on getting tapped out. Like, it was obvious that, BJJ black belts were better grapplers and better at BJJ than me.
Yeah.
But of course, these were slightly modified rules. So Draka is, the Russians' version of MMA. So they really like the striking. So if it doesn't kind of...
That sort of 10 seconds on the ground type of thing?
Yeah, I think it's 30 seconds. But, they don't, unless you're really going hard to, twist someone's ankle off or, choke them out, they're not, they're just like, stand up. If you stop for even a few seconds, they're like, okay, stand up.
Okay, yeah.
They're Russians. They're hard ass. They're like, whatever. But they really understand, obviously, MMA completely.
Did you, when I started training with guys that just did boxing, so for the most part, it's always been sort of kickboxing for the purpose of MMA. But when I started training with pure boxers, I started learning the intricacies of boxing and footwork. I found it really hard to adapt to, because you just don't have the mobility in kickboxing, because it's really sort of sitting on your back leg while using your front leg to protect you. And it took me quite a long time to adapt and to get more confident with my feet. Did you have any sort of similar problems like that, or were you able to adapt to it quite quickly?
I come from a karate background. So in karate, they have basic stances: a forward stance, back stance, and a regular stance in the middle. So a forward stance is like a boxer. A back stance is like a Thai boxer. And 6 of one, half a dozen in the middle to be like an MMA fighter, right? So I didn't really have that much. I didn't have trouble with the stances. Don't get me wrong. Boxing is a tough sport.
I mean, even more so like really having to learn how to fight moving backwards a lot more, and learning how to cut angles a lot more. I found really, really difficult in a pure boxing environment.
No, I didn't have that problem. I mean, of course, coming out of Mundine's gym, it was a boxing gym.
Yeah, of course.
And you just spar everyone. So we were boxing all the time as well. Don't get me wrong. When I first started boxing, I could punch hard, and I was fit, and I was strong. There's a big difference between what you said, boxing, someone can really box. It is a sweet science, and they will just, make your head look like a smashed potato. But, I think I box okay. But but when I train for a boxing fight, I only box. When I train for an MMA fight, my whole camp is just MMA. When I do kickboxing, it's just kickboxing.
You're out of all the people that I've had the opportunity to spar with over the years, I still remember you being the most controlled. And I remember having this conversation with Larry as well. Despite your size and as much danger as you could have put me in, I never felt like I was in danger sparring you. You always very much had the ability to spar to the ability of the person that you were with. I know that's not always the case. I guess I'm not even asking for your input. This is just more of a compliment. But stylistically, did it take you a while to do that? Because as you would know, sometimes even what's meant to be a friendly spar can escalate pretty quickly sometimes.
My rule of thumb was always be this. The smaller or the least experienced person picks how hard and how fast you want to go. So if they're not being a fuckwit, I'll be cool. So if you got a new guy who's a white belt, or you got someone who's just starting kickboxing, and they're small, if you want to go easy, then we'll go easy. I mean, it's like I said, I live at the bottom of a little mountain. It's about 80 to 100 meters, hill, whatever. If I keep climbing up and down there, it's going to be pretty easy. It's no big, if I was a mountain climber, it's nothing to brag about that I can climb up and down and, 80-meter, 100-meter hill, right?
Mm.
If you're a fighter, beating up, people who are clearly not as skilled or as big as you in a gym, that makes you look like a freaking idiot.
Mm.
Like for me, I always enjoyed that. I always enjoyed, sparring people who wanted to learn. But it just didn't give me any joy to beat up someone who was smaller than me or not as skilled as me, and who I clearly knew that I could beat up if I wanted to.
Mm.
The joy that I got was, standing in front of an absolute freak of a human being going, "Oh my God." And you feel it. You feel everyone in the crowd, when your opponent walks out and they're terrifying, Alexander Emelianenko, and you're the only person who's up for that job. Everyone else in the whole arena is going, "There's no way on God's little green earth that I would step in the ring with that man." And then you go, "You know what? I'll fight the dragon. Bring it on." And when you win against something like that, you can't describe the feeling.
Mm.
It's like, that's it. And if you're a fighter, you're just like, that's it. I want to do it again. I want to do it again right now. Let's go again tonight or tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon or the next fight. And that's what I'm like. I'm like, that was the excitement, not the excitement of, showing everyone in the gym that I can beat the crap out of everyone. Almost because I am a big guy. I'm not really big. I'm kind of big. I'm 6'3" and about 120 kilos. You kind of like, I'm like, I don't want you to be scared of me. I want you to be my friend. I'll show you how to do stuff. In the ring, it's like, okay, now I can let it go. Because I knew, that's the place that you get something positive from it. If I beat the crap out of, like when I met you, I beat the crap out of a guy I know that can't kickbox it, and he's obviously not as big as me. And then he'll go, you know what, that Peter Graham guy, he's a fuckwit anyway. I'll lose a friend if I make a friend. And I'm all in to make a friend.
Fair enough. You had mentioned, you've touched on the fear of going in there sometimes. And when speaking with some of the other fighters, they don't really admit that they're scared very often. At different points when you're doing the promotional stare downs, and you had mentioned the Emelianenko brother then, are there any moments or key people that you found that you just went like, fuck, how am I going to get through this? I'm terrified.
Yeah, Emelianenko?
Yeah.
It's like looking into dark pools of nothing.
He's stoic, isn't he? Those two brothers, huh?
No. Fedor is fine. He's a really super nice guy. It's chalk and cheese. Fedor Emelianenko is like, I remember one time we were in Russia, we sit down together, we're in like a fairly cheap motel that he'd chosen to stay in as well, instead of staying at anywhere he could have. He could have stayed anywhere. He was the main event of the fight. He's like a demigod in Russia. I was sitting down at this like cheap breakfast bar, and he's sitting there by himself. I said, "Hey man, what are you doing? Let's have breakfast. Want to sit down?" Sat there. It's like, but his brother is just like, man, chalk and cheese. The other person who's is Mark Hunt. You look into Mark Hunt's eyes, and you just, I don't know. You don't. He's not angry. He's not scared of you. He's not just like
there,
looking into pools of blackness. It's funny because in his book he said that's how he feels before a fight. Like, doesn't feel anything. He's not afraid or anything like that. And it's true. It's true. He really isn't. I mean, I've been afraid, but if Mark Hunt said he wasn't afraid, I would believe him. There's another guy called Jason Suddy in New Zealand who's like that as well. But for me, there was plenty of times I was afraid, but I was more afraid of not having a fight. I was more afraid of staying where I was. I was more afraid of being a loser, to me, not to anyone else. I didn't think anyone else give a shit. Even when most people in the world knew who I was and the most famous TV all the time or something, like I still didn't think anyone actually gave a shit. It was like, oh, well. I mean, you realize it. I go, hey, that's really cool. That's really nice. But I'm like, I'm not the best in the world. I'm pretty good, but that guy's better or whatever. So I never personally bought into any of that stuff. but certainly there is that fear drove me emotionally in training. Like, you know, when you sign on and you go, I'm going to fight that guy, you know, you want to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, go for a run. There's your motivation.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about the move into MMA. As you said K1 had dried up. You started looking at boxing, and then that, as you had already mentioned, that's kind of where we crossed paths.
And they wouldn't. You can't box and do K1 in Japan. Different groups of gangsters run it.
Right.
You can't do both. You can do MMA and K1, but you can't do MMA, K1, and boxing, or you can't do MMA and boxing. Just not going to happen.
Okay.
So MMA, the guy said, hey, Pete, you want to go? There's this new organization, Pride had went under. It's the people from the Pride office. It's not Ichigeki, it's Sengoku, right?
Yeah.
And I said, sure, why not? I'll fight. They had some cool MMA coaches, so I just started training MMA. And I kept on losing by, you know, guys who just could, you know, their BJ skills were miles in front of mine. Like I almost did none before, and then I said, I'll do it. So as soon as I went to the ground, I just lost. But I just kept training. I kept training. The only problem is if you keep losing, it doesn't matter how popular you think you are, you keep making less and less money. And the fight with Alexander, I made almost nothing. Well, they offered me almost nothing. So I took the money. I was in Brazil. I was training with Pedro Rizzo.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Shout out, guys. Really super nice guys. Everyone, Brazilians are awesome to train with. They're so friendly. I mean, they're bad.
Rizzo was one of my favorite guys from that early time period. There's one fight where he's fighting Trey Teligman, and he kicks him so hard he spins him 360 standing. It was amazing.
Yeah, he's probably the best low kicker that doesn't come from a karate background I've ever met in my life.
Yeah,
I mean, probably he is. He was really super nice to me, super friendly, and training with all the guys there, that team.
How's his English?
Perfect.
Yeah, right. Okay. I'll have to see if we can speak with him.
Anyway, so if there was a problem, just translate.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So, she just translate for me.
How do you feel then, I guess, between competing across all of them, what do you think were the unique challenges of it? I mean, clearly, you know kickboxing pretty well. It sounds like you had adopted or you were happy with your adoption of boxing. What do you feel you sort of left on the table with MMA? Obviously, some of the grappling stuff, but was the transition harder than you thought it was? Because with the money that's now in MMA, I'm quite surprised at how few stand-up strikers have continued to move over into MMA. Oh, I've lost you completely again, Pete.
It's a Bellator. Sorry, I'm not saying that to get lost on points. I thought that I just had one, I messed with one fight. I thought I might get some more Bellator, but you know, the thing about fighting fighting in America to begin with, I was like, man, I couldn't make any money paying the tax and all these other things they have to pay. It just became more lucrative to fight in other countries. But I would have liked to have a proper training camp for MMA world title. That's the only thing I wish that I left on them. I wish I had done, because I won the Draco Intercontinental title. I came second to Czech Congo in the Bellator heavyweight tournament, but I never got to have a world title fight in MMA. I really think I could have, I was on the verge of being able to win one. But I really like to do that still. That's about the only thing.
What happened with boxing? Because you won the Australian heavyweight title, but as far as I can tell, you didn't defend it, did you? No, you don't really defend it. You go to the next one. That's the idea. Right. Okay. So what kind of was happening was two things. One, I'd opened my gym. I was super busy. I have a family, young family. So I kept winning.
And then I won the WBO Asia Pacific's, like the biggest regional boxing title you can win. It's a heavyweight. And then you got to kind of work your way up through the alphabet soup. So
the alphabet soup. I like how you say that.
So you have to win one of the smaller world titles, but it has to be legit. And the first one off the rank, just under the three big ones, is a WPF. So I fought for that. A big guy called Julius Long. And then after that, it just becomes super difficult to get, fights because there's so much money involved. And it was just like, look, you've got to, I'm not going to fight these guys. By this time I was a little bit more sensible. I'm like, if you want to fight those guys, you need to pay me more money, because if that guy's making $5-6 million, I ain't fighting him for chicken feed. And also, I need the money to be able to train properly. Like, if you to train properly, you need to not think. You need to have more than enough money not to think of anything else. When you're really young, it's just you, so you don't have to worry. But when you get older and you've got mortgages and cars and wives, and not wives, kids, yeah,
you have be so lucky. Eh?
no, man, you're crazy. One's enough. Gym and all these payments and everything. I'm like, look, I really wanted to. If I was a single man, I might have done it. But I'm like, look, you just got to offer me a better deal. Like, I'm not going to put myself in that kind of danger for that kind of money. Not now. Because when I first started, I had nothing. I was going nowhere and I had nothing. So I had nothing to lose. But by that time, I have a beautiful family. I have a cool gym. Well, up until the coronavirus, I just died in the arse. My life is awesome. Everything I ever wanted, I done and achieved, and and so much more. Right? I'm healthy. I'm happy. Who can say they had 17 years as a pro with over 120 fights and had no injuries, and my brain is normal, and I live in a beautiful home, and I get to send my kids to good schools in a nice area, and I have a beautiful wife, and I have lots of great friends and things like that. So I'm like, if I was to get seriously injured now,
the stakes become
the balance wasn't there. So I need to have a big payoff, because I mean, if I lose, I could lose a lot. There's a lot. Now I have a lot to lose, and that's really what ended up me thinking. So like, my wife said, "What are you fighting for now?" I said, I'm a fighter, babe. I want to fight. I want to do. I said, but this is what you fought for. You've achieved. You've got what you wanted. And it's true. I like to say that all the good things that you can get out of being a fighter, I got. So I'm super appreciative of what I got. It's not like I'm angry at anything or the things that happen. It's just like, hey, it's a journey, man.
Well, you're setting up my next questions as we sort of begin to move downhill and wind this thing up. But one of the questions you had talked about, making sure that you're making enough money, and that seems to be very similar to another guy who's followed a little bit of your path, Lucas Brown, the boxer, who again, I don't follow boxing as much as I follow MMA, so I remember him from those King of the Cage days. Yeah, those early ones before he decided to specify into boxing and train with the Tahuna brothers. I believe that you guys are friends, and he's gone through some issues with testing for drug use. But recently, he said, "That's it. I'm not fighting in Australia anymore." He goes, I'm reaching sort of, the end of my career, and the only money that I can get guarantee wise, and also the only guys that he seems to have expressed that there's not a lot of legitimate promoters here.
Well, for starters, the biggest state for boxing was New South Wales, and the Combat Sports Authority in New South Wales is just a fiasco.
Okay.
And they're just killing boxing, kickboxing, and MMA. It's just ridiculous. Like,
why? What are they doing?
I remember signing on once, and they're saying, they tick the professional things you want to be able to fight in. So, tick kickboxing, tick MMA, tick boxing. It's got Thai boxing. So, okay, I'll tick Thai boxing, and then it's got UFC. I said, what's this? Well, are you UFCing as well? Well, I said, I fight MMA, which is UFC. Like, the person who's, handing me this form, getting me to fill it out, is asking me if I do UFC. I was like, what the fuck? This is embarrassing. These are the people who are running our sport. It's like, I get what they're trying to do. But other stupid things like, not allowing people with, criminal convictions to fight. I'm like, I'm not saying that, we're trying to.
You're taking away our talent pool.
but that's one of the few ways that if you might have fucked up your life completely, and you might be angry, but taking it out in the ring is the right place to do it.
Yeah.
That's where you might be able to turn your life around. It's like, are you people not thinking? It's just like, are you not aware how the system works, why it's set up? It was set up by people who were desperate, myself included, and fighting, boxing, kickboxing, MMA, whatever it was, gave you a chance to, beat your way out of a shit life. And sometimes that maybe all you have is that will to fight. And, someone says, no, and then, well, what do you want? Some big crazy ass, person beating up people on the street? No. But going back to Lucas, Lucas is, I feel his pain. It's hard because, we don't have, it's also with managers, promotions, we've got a lot of good coaches, but getting there, and there's so many people trying to rip everyone off all the way up. It's like, wow. And then sometimes it feels like no one gives a shit. Like when he fought in, what was the name of the country? The bottom of Russia. That was an unbelievable win. But no one jumped on board to help him out. Like I remember when I was in Japan, I was winning everything, famous all around the world. After I knocked out Badr Hari, my best mate was my main sponsor.
Yeah, right. Why?
And then you go over there, and other people were getting, like you hear these guys getting. When I was training over with Dan Henderson, the local car dealership gave him a massive, cool truck to drive around. He's got guys with 4 fights and 4 wins would be getting $5,000 from the pizza shop. I'm like, fuck, this is unbelievable. That's why I like America so much. It's such an awesome place for sports, is because if they just back their local guy and nothing else. It's like, you're a fighter, whatever. I mean, there's a few good people. The guy who used to own Fat Blaster, Peter Nichols, he was really cool. And there's a few others. The guy who owns URM, Anthony Johnson, he helped me out a few times. But it's almost like, but it's not why I did it. But I'm just saying, it's like, it's tough when, you think, if I win a world title, people are going to start to follow me. Now win another one. And I'm sure John Wayne Parr feels the same. I mean, he's got some sponsors, but I mean, he's like me. He's had like 120 fights as well. And you're just like, wow, everyone knows who I am, but no one, there's no big corporate sponsor. I guess it's tough, but that's the thing, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Do you, one of my favorite memories, just period, is when UFC 110 came to Sydney. That was the first time that they'd come to Australia. And because Boxing Works was based in the downtown core of the city, all the guys were coming through there. And I remember
that was a good time, huh?
Yeah, and I remember speaking to you, I think a day after I was watching you and Wanderlei spar. Wanderlei was fighting Bisping, and Big Nogueira was there to fight Cain Velasquez. Jason Mayhem Miller was floating around town for some reason. Guys like Krzysztof Szynski were there.
Krzysztof and Mayhem they all fight out of Team Quest, so that's why they were there. And also those guys are, I was hanging out with them in the States, so they came over with Ryan Parsons, who was the head coach.
Ryan Parsons was there, that's right. Rafael Cordero was there, Ed Soares, all these guys.
That was a super cool time, man.
It was every day I'd walk in and there'd be new guys. I was just like, this is insane. I was definitely going, that whole week was just absolutely fantastic. And Randy Couture was there as well, of course.
Yeah, Randy was there. Really good friends with Larry.
Larry, that's right, yeah. But I distinctly remember you coming off and you said, shit, Wanderlei is one of the hardest guys that I have been hit by. And he's smaller than you, so I was surprised to hear you
he's a lot smaller
say
than
that. But he's just got that sort of winding. He reminds me of those action figures where you pull the arm back and it's got the spring and comes in. I mean, what was it? I guess we can go through all that, but you've sparred with everyone. But I mean, there's got to be some sort of memories that you have with these guys, and that one sticks out distinctly to me.
You know what it is? Some people, Wanderlei's one, Mark Hunt's one, Ben Edwards is another, and this 13-year-old girl who came and did karate at my school was another.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous. Some people just have heavy hands. This girl came from a dance studio. She was a little heavy, not much, but she was a little heavy, and so she'd stop dance because she was feeling a little insecure. She came to do karate with us, and then she, I taught her how to punch. She was a puncher. I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. And then, I taught her how to do a back kick, and she lifted me off the ground. She wasn't like, she was still a 13-year-old girl. I said, what the fuck is going on here? I was like, this girl is so balanced. And like when she hits you, it was like, and it was just from then on, this girl could just hit impossibly hard for such a young 13-year-old girl. I was like, she's ridiculous. This is, and like Mark Hunt hits you and you fucking stay hit. He's just a fucking big hitter. And there's, some other Polynesian guys who are like that as well. But yeah, it's just
how do you, when you work with guys like that, and another guy that sort of reminds me of that is someone like David Tua in boxing. How do you try to spar with those guys, or how? Is there can they control themselves? It just feels like it's almost a fight every time that you spar them. How do you try to retain some level of control with guys like who have that
thing
power?
that overcomes power, of course, is skill and fitness. So, I mean, that's the most simplistic answer I can give you. So if someone is big and strong, you need to be A, fit,
and agile,
and B, skilled.
Quick. Yeah, okay.
If you don't, like, it's horses for courses. If you want to try there and duke it out with Mark Hunt, here's the bad news. You're going to lose.
Do you think CTE, brain damage, has become huge news probably within the last 10 years of this sport? And as we know, even when I started out, there wasn't really, in a lot of cases, a lot of things like soft sparring. There was just sort of sparring in preparation for fights. You've been doing this for years. Wanderlei Silva's come out publicly, said that he thinks he's suffering from it. Guys like Bablu Sobral have said so. Gary Goodridge is now virtually incoherent. Yeah. Do you think you've had any repercussions from this at all?
Hard to say. I mean, I've had CT scans. It's been a while since I had one, but when I had one, I remember the people coming and small people coming in, and I said, hey, I thought, oh, geez, there's a problem. I go, well, what's going on? I was worried. And they said, no, we're just making sure this is your scan. I said, oh, why? What's going on? And they said, well, things like your pituitary gland and, different areas of your brain. I said, doesn't really match up with what you've been telling us. I said, well, what do you mean? Well, I said, well, you basically got the brain of a librarian. Most people who are in combat sports or, play, football, like, rugby league or rugby union or moving forward, we can have a look. There's a, certain, the structure of the brain is physically different from all the impacts. He said, but yours looks like you've been sitting in a library since you were 10. And I said, well, maybe when they said I was thick at school, maybe it was a compliment. I don't know. So I don't think I've suffered anything. I mean, I haven't been back for a checkup. Maybe I should, see anything out, because I had a lot of fights after that. But I mean, I don't have any problems like remembering things. I study, I read. I'm not a junkie or an alcoholic. I run a business. My family's kept together. All the things that seem to happen from it. I don't know. I mean, it's there. It's real. Complaining about it after someone's paid you millions of dollars to do it for years, I think is a bit of bullshit. So, hey, this is what happens. If you should know about it, and if you think it's bad, or you should do something else. Play golf. They pay lots of money too. It's a little bit more expensive.
Might be a hard transition, I think, for a lot of people from professional fighting
I don't know.
golf.
I never played golf. Doesn't look that hard.
We're starting to. I want to talk about sort of post-career now, and we'll wrap up there.
Okay.
There's a lot of guys, and you would know this firsthand. I mean, you've mentioned multiple times how you feel blessed. You've ended up with a wife, family, kids. You've done well and come out of this on the right side. I think we both know there's a lot of guys that are spending the money as it comes through, and there's no exit strategy, and they're doing this later into their career, fighting guys literally half their age on the way up for a few dollars. Were you aware through this process? And you said you kind of alluded to it, the back end of your career, looking for those paydays. As you're going through your career, are you aware that you need this money to ride out, the next 50 years of your life? And were you able to bankroll some of that to help you set up your life now that you're in post career?
Yeah. I was always aware of the money, because I was broke as shit when I started.
Okay.
And I didn't have anyone else to rely on. It wasn't like, oh, you know what? If this doesn't work out, I'll become a lawyer, or I'll become a mechanic, or I'll become anything. There wasn't another option. I had no backup plan whatsoever. So did I think about the money? Fuck yeah. People say, oh, but, you shouldn't fight for the money. So shut the fuck up. You got to work for money. I mean, you shouldn't be an accountant for the money. You should do it for the love.
Sure. But I mean,
do it for the love of getting, MYOB done correctly. That's why you should do it. The love of banking. No, people do it for the money, and that's cool. I mean, I love fighting, but hey, I love having cash too.
So during your career,
but also. Pardon?
I was just saying, during your career, then, were you thinking about one of the biggest things from people across all sports backgrounds is that they don't think about how they can invest their money and make it work for them afterwards. It sounds like you seem to have done all right doing that sort of activity, or learning along the way how you're going to make this money work for you once you're done fighting in your late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, well, I did. I got a house in Redfern that was one step away from being derelict. And I'd have a fight, and I'd fix one area, and then I'd have another fight, I'd put the money in, fix another area. I really wanted to have a home. I really wanted to have a house. I want to have many houses. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be successful. So it was really important for me. And also, being in Redfern for so long, I saw a lot of great fighters after their career, and it was sad. I thought, man, that's not going to happen to me. So when you met me, I just came back from Japan, so I had plenty of money. And I already had a house paid off, and I was good. But I was working there and doing security. It's because I didn't want to rest on my laurels. I thought, nope, I'm going to keep at it. I don't want to end up. I'm going to learn how to run a gym. And then, I went, okay, I got to look around. And I tried to learn as much as I could from Larry and Ali running Boxing Works. And then one of my clients said, hey, I know someone who's selling a gym out west. Maybe you should think about buying it. And I went, it's a bit soon. I wasn't, and then I just jumped on it because I thought, just stick to what you know. And this is what I know. So I did it. It was super hard. I'm like, man, I remember sitting there on the steps after a week or two going, I got this big rent to pay and, all these other, bills that I got to pay. And I got like 17 students, 16 students, 15, whatever. And I said to them, maybe we could just pack up and we could all go to Brazil. And I got a baby girl, a little girl. But me being the way I am, obviously I didn't do that. I just, bit down hard in the mouth guard and said, I'll just stick it out for another day. And I just kept doing that. And that's, but it was important that, I'd be financially stable as well. Because, I think the only people who say, oh, money doesn't matter are people with a lot of fucking money. Because it really matters.
It does. It certainly does.
And I never forgot what Sam Greco told me. He said, you can't bank ego.
Yeah. Save
your money, champ. Don't do shoot. I mean, but I wasn't interested in just partying. I wasn't interested in girls. I was interested in being a fighter, making my life better, and making money. I'm happy about the other stuff, but that wasn't anywhere near. That was like fighting was 99.9%. The money was like super important too, and everything else was a distant second. I wanted to fight, not all the other stuff.
I've had the chance to speak with Parash about how he runs his gym, and he's got a team Parash out of Five Dock, and as I said, I train and teach out of Mark Matthews, Newcastle Karate up here, and they've both given me insights into running a gym. What sort of I've got my own small business as well that I run, but what shocked you? Like, I mean, when you talk about rents, professional indemnity insurance, having to have numbers, Parash gave me insights that the average student tends to last for something like 6 to 7 months. So you have to always have, new business programs running. What stuff sort of shocked you the most about doing this yourself?
Is how much you need to know about business and how little you need to know about combat sports and martial arts.
Okay. So have you picked up a lot of that stuff? I think
I have been working my ass off for 8 years, learning as much business as possible. Every year I study and do courses to improve my knowledge on how to run a combat sports and martial arts gym. Every year, all the time, constantly studying. And with the help of Paul Zadra, the guy who's the head of ISKA and Kemba Karate, Larry Paparopoulos always helped me out as well. I'm always learning. And I'm always struggling, always trying to improve on it. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's annoying, but just keep on keeping on. And at the moment, when the gym just got so, we went from our 2 best months ever to zip. I was like, how can we pivot? What can we do? How can I make sure that I'm there when this up? And me being prudent and tight with my money before is, means that we're going to get through this. But I tell you, it's going to cost me a packet. But that's life, man. But I think I'll tell you the attitude of discipline from martial arts and, combat sports just being, I'm going to fight for it. I want it. I'm still hungry in my life. I'm not going to fight anymore, but I'm hungry for success. And that's what I like. I'm doing a real estate course at the moment as well. I've done some small developments in real estate on my own. I want to improve on that. We were thinking about opening another gym because there's a couple of IMCs already. They're not mine, only the one in Prospect. I want one over in the Northern Beaches as well. That forward progression, of course, is what keeps people happy. I've learned that in my life. So I just always looking forward. You ever heard there's the saying that people in AA, they say, one day at a time and be thankful for what you got, basically, and know the difference between the stuff you can't change and the stuff you can. And if you're smart enough to do that, you're doing well. Something like that. There's the prayer, whatever itself it is good. You can see why it works for people going through tough times.
You've you've transitioned. You're now a business owner and a coach to other students. I wanted to ask you just about how as you get older. I notice you've mentioned multiple times. You can't bank ego. As you get older, I've noticed that younger guys who are doing it full time in the way that I can't anymore, you're just kind of a bag for them sometimes on guys who are making their way up. And how do you, do you have any issues mentally with dealing with the fact that your skill set deteriorates and you're not kind of the person who you were? You might know more, but you can do less.
Here's the funny thing. I don't have any injuries. I don't have a sore hip or a sore back or a sore neck or a bad knee or a bad hip. So I'm just out of fight shape. So I don't really feel that, but I'm sure that day will come. Most of the time, just my skill set just means that if I spar with someone or move around or whatever, it's just like there's not really anything there. I'm sure it'll come, but I think it's about just being true to myself. I mean, I know that one day I will become an old man, and that's because now I know it's a journey, and I enjoy my life. I'm so happy with so many different aspects of my life. It wasn't until I was 30 years old. I remember sitting on my bed, waiting for my girlfriend to come over, with my cool car out the front, being signed to K-1. And it was a sunny day, and I was looking over the park. And I went, you know what? I'm not angry anymore. I'm happy. I'm good. I got stuff. I'm going somewhere. And from that moment on, I kind of been happy. I wasn't content. That took until I was 40. But now I'm pretty happy and content. But I'm driven. I like the excitement of going forward. So I guess being happy and content with what I've done, because when I say I left absolutely everything on the table, I tried as hard as I could every single time. I feel that I put everything I can. If someone beat me, they beat me. That was cool. And there was maybe 2 fights where I feel I could have done better, but I was just I feel that it's okay. And they know who I am. I'm like, yeah, well, even if you got me now, you still got a long way to the top, champ. And I'm a big guy, so there's not that many heavyweights. So I guess if I get a young heavyweight beat the crap out of me a few times, I'm like,
I guess so. Yeah, you're already at the top of the pecking order for the most part on genetics alone, hey?
Yeah, but Blacktown's got a few big Polynesian kids, so I'm sure one's going to walk through the door and go, "Hey, Chief, how you going? My uncle sent me here." I've met a few of them. It was pretty cool. We were like, "Oh man, this is the next Mark Hunt. I've got to be his punching bag to help him get to the top." Yeah, well, that'll come.
That's the story of Tai Tuivasa, the kid who was on the drink who couldn't hang on to league, so he just said, "I'll just show up and punch on," and he's doing very well for himself these days at the moment.
Yeah, he did well. He shouldn't have fought me though.
That's true. That's right. That was years ago. I forgot about that on his way up.
I told him. I told his manager. I said, "Don't fight me." I said, "Yeah, I know what they're trying to do." I said, "I get what you're trying to do." I said, "Bad idea. Don't fight me. I'll do it because I want the money, but don't fight me. It's not a good idea." Look,
I think that's an awesome place to wrap it up.
Ty's an awesome guy too. If you ever meet him, he's a super nice guy.
We'll have to see how for people listening to this, we had a dropout in the audio and our quality's been going back and forth. So hopefully we can get it mixed and mastered into something that's nice and audible, because this has been a pretty insightful chat. And as always, I'm grateful for your time. I think we've been going for about 2 hours here.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the chat. I like talking to you. If it didn't work out, we could chat again.
Yeah, hopefully. Indeed. Well, I mean, I think there were even a couple of podcasts that you were trying to get off the ground with Jeff O'Hara that I think you guys did 2 episodes and I never heard anything from you guys again or something.
Yeah, Jeff got busy, then I got busy, but I've been working on another podcast of my own, but the place got shut down for the coronavirus. So I'm like, I did a few. But we didn't have a name yet. We didn't even have a working title. But yeah, I got lots of interest. I had Adam Courtney on, which is Bruce Courtney's son, who's an awesome author. Yeah, I love reading too. So I love authors, and I like lots of crazy stuff.
Well, when everything opens up again, I hadn't realized you were on the northern beaches, because we moved up to Newcastle a few years ago for the affordability. So I mean, what would it take to get you to come up for an afternoon and work with some of our guys?
Yeah, we could do that.
We'll sort something out. Cool.
Not too far at all. We can just jump on a ferry from where I am and then go to. It shouldn't be too long.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, look, we'll talk about that when we're allowed to go outside again.
Yeah, for sure.
In the interim, it's been really nice to chat with you. I haven't, for anyone who is listening, I think it's. I moved over to the UK in like 2014, so it's been probably 7 years since I actually last spoke to you. Then I'm guessing.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
7. Yeah. 7 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Time flies, man.
It does. Well, look, thanks for your time, Pete, and it won't be 7 years next time.
I hope so.
All right.
Very beautiful, man.
Cheers. Have a good afternoon.
See ya.